Welcome to the Mini Book Podcast on YouTube. You know, it's pretty startling when you think about it. Some figures suggest, like 70% of really promising startups eventually crash.
Yeah, a huge number.
And often, it's not the market, it's not even lack of cash, it's egos clashing inside the company. Friction.
Or you look back through history, right?
Yeah.
So many brilliant people who just imploded. Their own sense of importance became their downfall.
It really is a sobering thought, isn't it? How much this internal stuff affects the real world.
Absolutely. It's powerful.
And hey, if you're finding this useful, we'd really appreciate it if you could take just a second to hit like and subscribe. It really helps us keep bringing you these kinds of discussions and up-to-date book insights.
That does make a difference.
So let's get to the Mini Book Podcast on YouTube. Today, we're going to immerse ourselves in a really sharp book, Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday.
Great book. Really cuts through the noise.
It does. It tackles how our ego, that sense of self-importance, can mess with our ambitions, sabotage us when we do succeed, and even stop us learning when we inevitably fail.
Which happens to everyone.
Exactly. So our goal here in this deep dive is to unpack the core wisdom from Holiday. Look at how understanding our ego and, crucially, managing it can lead to, more sustainable success. And maybe more fulfillment, too.
More grounded achievement, maybe.
Yeah, grounded is a good word. The book splits this whole challenge into 3 stages: aspire, success, and failure.
A really useful framework.
We'll touch on all 3, pull out the key lessons, use some of the great examples Holiday provides.
And that aspire, success, failure structure works so well because the ego changes, right? It shifts its tactics depending on where you are in your journey.
Right. Okay, so let's start with that first one, aspire. And the hidden dangers of ego when you're just starting out before you've really done much.
Yeah, that early ego can be sneaky.
Yeah. Holiday talks about his own experience, actually. Right out of college, boom, he's suddenly the youngest executive at a talent agency in Beverly Hills, then a strategist for American Apparel. Fast rise.
Very fast.
And he says, pretty honestly, how that little taste of success just puffed him right up, inflated his sense of self.
It's easy to see how that happens. You start crafting these big stories about yourself, your amazing future.
Acting like you've got it all figured out when really you've barely begun the hard work.
And that inhale of success, it's like a drug for the ego, isn't it? It gives you this illusion, this feeling of, I've made it, but without the actual foundation of, real skill and experience.
Yeah, exactly. The lesson there is almost like that early success can be a bit of a mirage. Real growth happens when you're quietly learning, not loudly telling everyone how great you are.
Quiet learning, not loud claiming. I like that.
And this isn't new, right? Holiday digs up this advice from way back, 374 BC, Isocrates talking to Demonicus, a Greek rhetorician.
Ancient wisdom.
Yeah, and the core advice: modesty, justice, self-control, and a big warning: watch out for flatterers, people telling you what you want to hear.
Which feeds the ego directly.
Totally. And he points out this same struggle even pops up in Shakespeare, in Hamlet.
That connection's fascinating. Shows these are like fundamental human challenges. They don't go away.
So, speaking of people who got this, Holiday uses William Tecumseh Sherman as a contrast.
The Civil War general.
Right. Had connections, but his rise was slow, deliberate, spent years really learning his craft. And get this, when he got promoted during the war, he actually asked Lincoln not to give him superior command.
He asked for less responsibility. That's unusual.
It really is, especially compared to someone like, say, Napoleon, who seemed driven by this constant need for more power, more recognition, right from the start.
Sherman's reluctance really highlights something important. True power comes from competence, doesn't it? Not just the title. And that real modesty, it often comes from knowing what you've achieved, but also having a bit of doubt. That leads to poise, not just pretending to be humble.
Poise, not oppose.
Yeah.
And this connects to another trap in that aspiring phase: talking too much, promoting yourself constantly.
Oh yeah, the talking trap.
The book mentions research suggesting that just, saying your goals out loud can trick your brain, makes you feel like you've already made progress, so you actually have less drive to do the real work.
Right. Stephen Pressfield calls that resistance, doesn't he? That internal thing trying to stop you from actually doing the work. Verbalizing becomes a substitute.
Exactly. It feels productive, but it's not.
So who's the counterexample? Someone who just did the work.
John Boyd, the fighter pilot, military strategist.
Boyd, yeah.
His whole philosophy was basically to be somebody or to do something, and he always chose do something, worked behind the scenes, didn't chase the spotlight.
Not a household name maybe, but huge impact.
Huge. On military strategy, the lesson is pretty clear. Focus on the work, on accomplishing something bigger than yourself. Don't worry so much about getting credit, especially early on.
That desire to make a difference rather than just be someone important. It's a different kind of fuel.
Which leads nicely into the need for mentors, right?
Right.
And keeping that student mindset even when you start getting good.
Always be learning.
Think about Kirk Hammett, the lead guitarist for Metallica. I mean, they're massive.
Global superstars.
But even after all that success, he went and took guitar lessons from Joe Satriani. Put himself in a position to be critiqued, to work on the fundamentals.
That's incredible, really. At that level, still seeking instruction, willing to be the student, it shows mastery is a process, not a destination. Continuous learning is key, no matter what stage you're at.
Definitely. But then there's the flip side, passion without discipline.
Ah, yes. Passion's great, but
It can blind you, right? That initial excitement can hide weaknesses, make you overconfident, lead to bad calls. Holiday mentions the segue, huge hype, huge passion, but didn't live up to it.
or the thinking behind the Iraq War, proponents so convinced they ignored warnings. Even Robert Falcon Scott's Antarctic trip. Maybe too much zeal? Not enough careful planning?
Yeah, passion needs a balance. It needs deliberation, consideration, thinking things through, not just rushing forward on pure emotion.
Channeling the energy, not just letting it run wild. The lesson being, cultivate deliberation over just fleeting passion.
Now, here's a really interesting strategy. The book talks about the canvas strategy.
The canvas strategy. Tell me more.
Especially when you're starting, the idea is to focus on helping others succeed, making them look good. Like Benjamin Franklin writing letters anonymously early on, letting his brother get the credit just to test the waters and improve his writing.
So learning without the ego getting involved.
Exactly. Or Bill Belichick, the football coach. Started out doing the grunt work, analyzing film. His insights made senior coaches look good first.
It's about building a foundation by serving others. You gain skills, build relationships. It's actually a really powerful long-term play. Humble beginnings often lead to great things.
Right. Insight. Serving others first builds a stronger foundation, and sometimes that means putting up with stuff. Restraint.
Enduring unfairness.
Yeah. Like Jackie Robinson. The deal he made with Branch Rickey not to fight back against the racism he knew he'd face. He endured it to achieve the much bigger goal, integrating baseball.
That takes incredible strength. Prioritizing the larger purpose over the immediate need to react or defend yourself. Sometimes you do have to endure nonsense to reach a significant goal.
It's a tough lesson. And the last point for this Aspire stage, get out of your own head.
Stop the internal monologue.
Kind of. Stop getting lost in self-absorption in your own little world of illusions. Holiday mentions characters like Holden Caulfield totally wrapped up in themselves.
Living in their own narrative.
Yeah, and General George C. Marshall apparently refused to keep a diary during World War II, specifically because he didn't want to start believing his own hype or rationalizations.
Wow, that's foresight. Recognizing the danger of self-deception.
So the insight is, curb those flights of fancy. Try to be present. Don't let your internal story distort what's actually happening.
Be objective.
Right.
Easier said than done, but crucial.
Okay, so let's shift gears. Stage 2, success. You've made it, achieved something, now what?
Well, the common idea is great. Ego problem solved. But Holiday argues, nope, not usually.
Often gets worse, right?
Yeah, success can be like pouring gasoline on the ego fire if you're not careful. It breeds that sense of entitlement, like, I've arrived, I don't need to keep learning or trying.
The lesson being, achievement doesn't fix ego, it often just inflames it.
Exactly. Holiday mentions Degas complaining he couldn't write poems even though he had ideas. And Mallarmé told him, it's not with ideas, it's with words.
Meaning, you actually have to do the work.
Right, or Henry Ford, you can't build a reputation on what you're going to do. It's about continued effort. Like Darwin, spending decades refining his theory before publishing.
It's about loving the process, the practice, not just the applause at the end. That sustained dedication. Insight. Ideas are cheap, execution is everything. Focus on the craft.
But there's a danger here too, letting your identity get totally wrapped up in those external achievements.
Like Howard Hughes.
Perfect example. Incredible success early on aviation, movies. But then the ego took over. Isolation, paranoia, potential wasted.
A really stark warning. Shows success demands sobriety, right? You have to recognize you still need to learn to grow.
Learning never stops. Which brings up Genghis Khan, surprisingly.
Genghis Khan, how does he fit?
Despite being a conqueror, he was apparently really open to learning from the cultures he defeated, adopted new technologies, strategies.
But he wasn't rigid, he was adaptable.
Exactly. Willing to learn from anywhere. That's crucial for long-term success, that adaptability. Always stay a student.
And avoid telling yourself that success story after the fact, making it seem like it was all planned, all inevitable.
The retroactive narrative, yeah.
Bill Walsh, the football coach again, he focused on the standard of performance, executing every little detail perfectly, not on some grand plan for winning the Super Bowl by year X.
Focus on the process, the daily grind, the details. Trust that the results will come if the work is good. Don't get lost in building your own legend.
Good advice. But success can also stir up envy.
Yeah. Either others envying you or you looking at someone else's success and feeling inadequate.
Like Ulysses S. Grant, won the Civil War but later struggled financially, faced criticism. It's easy to get caught comparing.
The key is to focus on your own path, your own definition of success. Ignore what others are doing if it just makes you feel bad. Envy is poison.
It really is. And as that ego swells with success, entitlement creeps in. The need for control, paranoia.
Xerxes freaking out when the sea broke his bridges. General Winfield Scott writing that incredibly arrogant letter. Napoleon thinking he knew better than everyone in France.
It isolates you, distorts reality, leads to really bad self-destructive choices. Ego isolates.
So managing yourself becomes critical, building systems.
Like Eisenhower's organized presidency versus John DeLorean's car company.
Exactly. Ike delegated, built structures. DeLorean, chaos, ego-driven decisions.
We know how that ended. True leadership needs humility to delegate, to focus on what really matters.
And then there's what Pat Riley called the disease of me.
The team kill. Yeah, when individual egos fracture the team's unity, it's focus. Think Shaq and Kobe, or even Jordan sometimes, pushing teammates maybe too hard, focused on his own drive.
It destroys cohesion.
The antidote, someone like George C. Marshall again, always putting the mission first, turned down promotions, even the D-Day command, if he thought someone else was better suited or it served the bigger picture.
That's real leadership, prioritizing the goal over your own glory.
So how do we keep that perspective when we're successful? Holiday suggests meditating on the immensity.
Connecting with something bigger than yourself.
Yeah, like John Muir in Alaska, feeling part of the vast wilderness, or the Stoic idea of sympathia, everything being interconnected.
It shrinks the ego down to size, right?
Okay.
Realizing you're just a small part of this huge universe. It's liberating. Helps you escape ego's grip.
Okay, final stage, failure. It happens. How do we handle it?
Well, the book makes it clear. Failure isn't just possible, it's pretty much inevitable. The real question is, how does your ego react? Because that determines what happens next.
Right. Your ego's response is the key. It can crush you or
it can be a chance to learn to reset.
Holiday talks about alive time versus dead time during setbacks, using Malcolm X in prison as an example.
Yeah, instead of just doing dead time, he used it to educate himself intensely. That was alive time. He transformed the situation.
We have that choice, don't we? To learn and grow even when things are tough, or just succumb to negativity.
Absolutely. And think of others who turned adversity around. Francis Scott Key writing the anthem, Viktor Frankl finding meaning in a concentration camp, Ian Fleming creating Bond after career setbacks, Walt Disney facing bankruptcy.
The pattern is there. Choose growth over despair. Turn adversity into opportunity.
But it's hard when your ego craves validation, right? What happens when you fail and no one recognizes your effort?
Yeah, the need for external approval. Holiday brings up Belisarius, the general serving Justinian, did great work, often got ignored, or worse. But he kept doing his job well.
For its own sake.
Exactly. Or Diogenes telling Alexander the Great to get out of his sunlight. Total self-sufficiency, not needing the king's approval.
It's about intrinsic motivation. Doing good work because you know it's good work, not because you expect a pat on the head. Don't rely on external recognition as the main driver.
And sometimes failure means hitting rock bottom. The book calls it katabasis, the descent, like in Greek myths.
John Kennedy Tools, J.K. Rowling before Harry Potter, Charlie Parker, Lyndon Johnson after losing an election, they all went through it.
And the point is, that rock bottom place, while awful, can be where you gain real self-knowledge. It's an opportunity in a weird way for major improvement.
if your ego lets you see it that way.
Right, because the ego's first reaction to failure is often blame, self-pity, or just doubling down on what didn't work.
Like DeLorean again, blaming everyone else when his company failed. Contrast that with Steve Jobs getting fired from Apple.
Huge blow to the ego, surely.
Absolutely. But he learned from it, reflected, came back stronger. It shows the need for humility, self-reflection, being willing to learn from mistakes. That's how you bounce back.
And crucially, letting go of anger. Holiday calls it always love.
Not letting bitterness consume you.
Think of Hearst trying to destroy Citizen Kane out of spite, or Nixon's anger that ultimately destroyed him. It's self-destructive.
Contrast that with, say, Frederick Douglass or Martin Luther King Jr., who faced immense hatred but didn't let it define their response. Or even Orson Welles just inviting Hearst to the premiere, a kind of detachment.
Yeah. Hatefulness eats you up from the inside. Detachment, forgiveness. That's the healthier path.
It takes practice, though. A lot of practice.
And finally, just perseverance, resilience. Keep going.
Like Churchill during his wilderness years, or Katharine Graham facing challenge after challenge at the Washington Post.
They just kept at it. Learned from setbacks, kept the long view, never gave up. That's the lesson. Keep going, learn, maintain perspective.
So the final takeaway from Holiday.
It's almost deceptively simple. Sweep the floor, every minute, every day. Meaning it requires constant vigilance, constant effort, ongoing awareness to keep that ego in check.
It's not a one-time fix.
Not at all. So the main message from Ego is the Enemy is pretty clear. Ego is this powerful inner opponent. It can wreck our plans when we're aspiring, twist our view of success, and stop us from recovering when we fail.
But we can manage it.
We can.
Yeah.
By cultivating humility, being self-aware, and just focusing on the work itself. If we do that, we can lessen its negative impact and hopefully achieve things that are more meaningful, more lasting.
It's really a call for that continuous inner work, isn't it? Realizing that true strength isn't about projecting confidence, but about mastering yourself. Quietly, consistently.
Well said. And again, these insights are all drawn from Ryan Holiday's fantastic book, Ego is the Enemy. We definitely recommend picking up a copy if you want to go deeper into all this.
Absolutely. It's full of practical wisdom.
You can find the details for the book down in the description below.
It's genuinely useful for anyone trying to achieve something worthwhile while staying grounded.
This is the end of the podcast. As always, thank you for listening, and please subscribe.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
Thank you for listening to the Mini Book Podcast. See you next time.